Hello, how on earth this has been edited together at the speed it has is beyond me. But here we are, and tonight we finally got the one who got away. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, for the first time ever, Harry McKirdy's landlord, Jack Payne. It's the lower league look. It's the lower league look. It's the lower league look. It's the lower league look.
I'm not doing the clap, Grant, because the clap didn't work last time because I'm in this new room and it's quite weird on sound. So, guys, we're here. Yeah. It is Thursday. We never record on a Thursday, but we're here. And
I know. I feel a bit out of touch recording on a Thursday. It's weird.
I feel that. I feel weird as well because we're recording tomorrow. It's to be fair. No, do you know whose fault it is? It's France and Morocco's.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I agree with that.
For anyone who hasn't noticed, talking to us right now, we have current Charlton player. We have Jack Payne joining us. Jack, welcome to the most unprofessional podcast you'll ever see in your life.
Sounds good. Look forward to it. Let's go.
One of us is in a dungeon. One of us in a messy kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It works.
Hold on. We're a bit out of our depth here. Charlton, it's League One.
It's League One.
What are we doing?
We decided to branch out, and there's certain players that we can go into League One for if they've played for League Two clubs and made enough of an impact. And Jack did, and he made a lot of people cry this summer when he left League Two.
Yeah,
we'll come to that.
Yeah.
I want to go back. Let's go back. Well, let's start at the beginning because you started your career with Southend.
Correct. Yeah.
Now, if I'd not read further down that you eventually went on loan to Oxford United, right? I'd have seen that you scored your first ever Southend goal for Oxford and then thought you were destined to play for Swindon.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of, you played for Southend, 9 goals in 32 appearances in your first season as a professional to win Player of the Year.
Yeah.
That's a bit mad, isn't it? How was it at Southend? Because it's not gone great for Southend, obviously off the pitch and things recently, has it?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think it was a similar story when I was there, but a lot got swept under the carpet because on the pitch we was quite successful. But yeah, like you said, my first year, but the year before that, I actually come on a few times as a sub. But my first proper year where I made quite a few appearances and scored a few goals, and yeah, we got promoted from League Two through the playoffs at Wembley, which that was one of my best ever years. I loved it, and obviously I come through the youth team, so a lot of the people I was playing with were good friends and I'm still friends with now. So in terms of seasons, that's right up there. I loved it at Southend, to be fair. And it's a shame to see how things have gone, and hopefully they can turn that around. I know they've started. They're doing better in the league now, but they're a long way from where they should be, really.
It's not an easy league either. Grant knows all about that.
No, of course.
The National League's horrible.
Yeah, they've got some massive teams at the moment. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Massive teams, a lot of money in it. How is it? How was it as a young pro playing at Wembley in the playoff final in a really, really early part of your career? Was this almost like, wow, I'm playing at Wembley now. This is like a dream come true so early. How was that feeling stepping out onto that pitch for the playoff final?
Do you know what? Not so much. I think the first few years of my career was sort of like, I wouldn't say a blur, but I didn't really know what to expect. So it just sort of happened. Whereas now that I'm older and I can look back and I've had highs and lows, now I live more in the moment. Whereas back then it was sort of like, yeah, we're at Wembley, this is what's supposed to happen. But I've been back to Wembley since, and like really, yeah, I wouldn't say I took it for granted, but I didn't realise how big of a deal it was at the time, if that makes sense. But it was still one of the best days of my career. Obviously, I come on, scored a penalty, and to get the club promoted, the club that meant so much to me, still means a lot to me. It was an unbelievable start to my career, really.
And how is it leaving a club that you've come through? Like you come through the youth ranks, and you obviously you have that moment. You get the penalty at Wembley. How is it leaving? How do you come to that sort of decision? Was it a case of the club needed you to move on, or do you make that decision yourself sort of earlier on in the season and have discussions with the club? Like, how do you come to a decision to leave what is essentially your club, really, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Well, we got promoted into League One, and I had a really good year in League One. And my only ambition was to stay at the club, to sign a new contract. And I wanted to be there for a long time. The fans loved me. I loved being there. It was all amazing, and that was my only focus. And then I hit some really good form around the around the December, January, February sort of time, and just so much interest started happening. My agent was telling me this club want me, that club want me, and then it's sort of come around where towards the end of the season, Southend took quite a while to offer me a decent contract, if I'm being honest. And then some of the offers I was getting were too good to turn down, and the chance to play in the Championship, and it was a no-brainer. Like, I don't think anyone in their right mind would have turned down the opportunity to play in the Champ. You know, it made too much sense to not do it, if that makes sense.
See, I can agree with you, like signing for the Championship, a Championship team, but it was Huddersfield. Now, I can't get on board with that. For me, I'm just like, for God's sake. But, you know, I mean, look, we got you on loan because of, obviously, you were at Huddersfield, and we have got a good relationship. They're rivals, but at the same time, we're League Two, they're Championship. So, Huddersfield at that time were phenomenal, like a really, really, really good side. And you went there, you played some games for them, you went out on loan to Oxford.
Yeah.
Obviously, that sets up your Swindon time because, you know, there's that rivalry there. But I don't think they even acknowledge that you ever played for Oxford.
I don't think they did, to be honest.
What's the difference then? That step up from, because essentially you stepped up from a League Two club. Obviously, you got promoted, but it's the infrastructure and things was still the same. It won't have changed drastically, but you step up to Huddersfield. What's that difference like? How different is that in terms of just day to day as a player?
Yeah, the difference is huge. Like, when you said about, so I had a few different Championship clubs that come, but I met with the Huddersfield manager at the time, David Wagner, and he put a presentation onto me, and it was like a different sport. I've never seen anything like it. The detail he went into, and like I come out of there, and I was like, oh my God. I said to my agent, I don't care what the contract is. Like, I need to be at that club. Like, it was incredible, the detail he went into. But literally, no disrespect to Southend at the time, but like you said, it was a League Two infrastructure, and like the difference in the training ground, the day-to-day stuff, it was incredible. And if I'm honest, looking back, when I signed for Huddersfield, I felt like I'd won a ticket. I felt like a fan. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I felt like I didn't belong there, and I think that's a bit of a regret. Where looking back, I wish I went there and sort of had the attitude like, I belong here. This is where I should be. But I remember like going in and thinking, how am I here? Like, it didn't feel real because I'd never had like you know, like a lot of kids come up through Arsenal academies or so and so. Like, from the age of 13, I was playing Sunday League, and for me, Southend was a big step up. So then to come into Huddersfield, it just didn't feel real. It felt like, how am I here, sort of thing. Yeah. But like I said, looking back, I wish I sort of went there and thought like, this is where I should be. But it is what it is. But I loved my time there. Obviously, got promoted that year into the Premier League. Played 30 games, so that's something like no one can take away from me, if that makes sense. So looking back, it was definitely the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, for a team in the Championship at that time, there's no bigger place to go and score your first goal either than where you did. You went to St James's Park, and scored the winner against Newcastle. Like, it's a daunting ground, I think, as a fan. What's it like? A ground. I think you're the first person we've spoken to who has played in a ground like that at a league level. Like, what is it like going from, you know, Southend? You've come from League Two. You've been playing. I think of the teams that were down there at the time. I think we got promoted to League One, so we were probably in League One at the same time as you. But what's it like to make that step up and walk out at St James's Park in front of those fans?
Like 40,000 hostile Geordies. Angry because they're in the Championship.
Literally, it was. I think it was sold out. It was 52,000 on the day, and it was their first home game of the season. Obviously, I think I'm pretty sure they just got relegated into the Champs. So it was their first Champ game of the season, and I was on the bench. I remember sitting there and just looking and thinking, like, this is the most ridiculous thing. Like, how am I part of this? I remember it felt like a Champions League night. I've watched a couple like Liverpool games in Champions League, and it had that same feeling where like, this is unbelievable. And I remember coming on. I think I come on a few minutes before I scored, and I remember obviously I scored the win. It was a nice finish and celebrated up into the gods with the away Huddersfield fan. And I remember like getting off the pitch and just I was in the showers and like I just felt numb, if I'm being honest. I was like, what has just happened? And I remember as I was leaving the stadium, like fans were coming up to me, Huddersfield fans saying like, you have no idea how many people you made happy. And I was just like, oh my God. I went to my phone and I honestly must have had, like my phone just blew up, like Twitter, everything. And I remember I got back to my flat in Huddersfield and I was just on my own, just all evening. And I was just, I'll be honest, I was walking around my flat like I couldn't believe what had just happened. And I was like, what do I do here? Like, I've got no friends or family around me. Like, usually I've been used to, if I scored a goal at Southend, I'd go home, my family would be there, or I'd go see my friends, and you sort of just share the moment with them. But I was just there on my own, and I was like, I can't just sit there and watch TV. I've just scored at Newcastle. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't sleep that night.
Sitting doing laps around your house.
No, literally, I was walking around my house like this. I was like, oh my God, like, how has that happened to me? Like, it didn't feel like, it didn't make sense. But yeah, it was incredible.
To be fair, I feel like that whenever I'm in Huddersfield. What am I doing here? Why am I here? How do I get out? Where's my family? Where's my friends? Why am I alone? That's just the impact that Huddersfield has on me.
Yeah.
So you go to Oxford.
Yeah.
You make your debut against Oldham, opening match of the season, winning. 2 assists in your debut. You've got form for debuts, haven't you?
Yeah, debuts, I do all right on my debuts, to be fair.
Second half at seasons, apparently not, Jack.
Just start well and then just live off that.
We'll come to that because that's an awkward conversation. My inbox has just been full of semi-angry Bradford fans with the same question, so we can have a nice chat. What's Oxford like then? So, in terms of infrastructure, coming from Southend, obviously going to Huddersfield, then going on loan to Oxford. Is Oxford similar to Southend in terms of how it's set up? Is it because clubs at this level, how do they? It always baffles me. Like players go from club to club. Is there much of a difference within the actual infrastructure of clubs at the level that we're at, or even?
Yeah, I would say there is, to be honest. Like Huddersfield, the 2 clubs I've been at where I feel like there was quite a big difference was Huddersfield and Blackburn. Like the train, I think the main thing is the training ground. That's where you spend every day. That's like. And obviously the stadiums are bigger, but I think the other thing is the mentality of the players. They just feel like they've got bigger personality, not so much bigger personalities, but like I don't know the right way to say it, like a healthy arrogance, like they know they belong at that level, and I feel like that's maybe the difference. But I really enjoyed my time at Oxford. I played some of my best football with the first 6 months. We had a great team. Like most of that team are playing regularly in the Championship now, and a few in the Premier League. Like we had a really, really good team that year. I think we was maybe a couple points outside the playoffs when I left in January, but I think like had we kept up the first half of the season form, we would have ended up in the playoffs because we was a really good side that year. Yeah,
I mean, you played there. Then obviously you were recalled. Were you recalled, or was it just that they only had a 6-month loan for you?
No, so they had a year. So 9 times out of 10, whatever player goes on loan for the season, they have a recall option in January. And Blackburn wanted me, and at the time I think they were 2nd or 3rd in the league, and it was a potential that if I went there on loan, it was going to turn into a permanent. So it just made sense. So the legal processes, they have to recall you to then send you out on loan to Blackburn. But it was never a case of Huddersfield recalling me for me to go to them. The plan was always for me to go on loan to Blackburn for the rest of the season.
Huddersfield have got form for recalling players and reloading them out. Grant found that out.
They do it all the time, don't they? And folk were saying that they weren't going to do it. They're not doing it again this season.
They are. Bradford have got, I think, 2 or 3 Huddersfield players. I've got a funny feeling that we're getting screwed this January.
That's not really to do with Huddersfield though. Like they won't have much say in that. Like it doesn't make too much difference to them whether the player, unless they're being recalled to play for them, it doesn't make too much difference where they're going on loan to. So. It's not much to do with Huddersfield, really. It's more to do with the player and the agent, what they want to do.
But do the club not want you to play at the higher levels? So let's say if we've got players on loan in League 2 and then someone from League 1 inquires at Huddersfield, from a Huddersfield perspective, surely they want their players playing at the highest level for experience?
Yeah. From that point of view, like most clubs will have a plan for their players. So if they think it's going to benefit them, then yeah, definitely. But say for my particular case where I was going from Oxford to Blackburn, both in the same league, only a few places, they wouldn't have been bothered whether I stayed or left, really.
No. Fair play. I've never really had anyone answer that question before about loans. We've never spoke about loans, Grant, have we? Not to that degree.
Loans confuse me at times.
Yeah, like the loan world is a bit of a crazy world, from the player's point of view, because there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to it. So and that comes into play when we're going to talk about Bradford. But yeah, there's the loan market is a interesting situation.
Yeah. Well, Bradford. Let's do it. So I'm gonna give you the question. I'm gonna give you the question, or I'm not gonna put it in the way that some people word it, because I'll be honest, some football fans can be dicks. I'm gonna put it in the way that I believe that it should be asked, and that's that you came to Bradford, you hit the ground running.
Yeah.
First half of the season was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the second half of the season was like a different Jack Payne at times.
Yeah, that's fair.
How do you feel that works for you? Like, when you hear that, what was different? Was there a noticeable difference to you? Was it something that was happening off the pitch, or in like the way you were told to play, that made you a different player? Like, I never, because we see it quite a lot. It's not just something that's to you. It's, you see players that go to one club and it doesn't work, and then go to another club and they're absolutely phenomenal. And we had Owen Doyle, I think kind of around the same time.
Yeah, same season, yeah.
Yeah, and he, for us, didn't work.
Yeah.
For Swindon, they call him the Ginger Pele.
Yeah, of course.
Like, so what that season, you started again. Here we go. Debut. You scored your first goal on your debut. That's a good way to endear yourself to Bradford fans, because they can be a pissy bunch at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, for you then, who brought you into Bradford? Was it Collins that brought you into Bradford?
Yeah, so I signed under Collins. Obviously, I had a meeting with him before I came, and he told me like how he wanted to do things, how he was going to work the team, and it suited me perfectly. The style he wanted to play, and if I'm right in saying, I think he lasted 6 games, was it?
Yeah, 6 or 7 games. It wasn't a memorable stint.
Yeah,
David Hopkins was not after that.
Yeah, then David Hopkins come in, which was a completely different style. But I also I done well under him, so it was nothing to do with that. But yeah, in terms of my season at Bradford, first half of the season, like we said, was going really well. Playing every game, scoring, getting assists. I remember December we hit really good form as a team, and I remember I was loving it on and off the pitch. I was living with one of my friends, having a really good time off the pitch, and on the pitch it was going amazing. I remember the fans were singing my song. Like I proper loved it. Everything was perfect. And then coming into January, the bit I spoke to you about before is I was on a season-long loan at Bradford, but I had a recall option in January. So coming up to January, I had about 3 or 4 clubs at the top end of League One at the time who wanted to sign me. And this season, I'm also coming into my last year at Huddersfield, my contract. So in the summer, I'm going to be available on the free. So I had the decision to make with my agent: do I go somewhere now for the long term, or do I stay at Bradford, hopefully continue my form for the second half of the season, then I'm available on a free in the summer, and then hopefully get a good move sort of thing. And then it was literally, it's the 15th, the last day you can get called back. It was, I think, 2 or 3 days before the Huddersfield manager left. So he'd left, and then it was the next discussion of, maybe I should go back to Huddersfield. They're in the Premier League. They're going to get a new manager. You're in really good form. Who knows, you go back, and who knows what could happen, sort of thing. So there was a lot going on at the time. And then I made the decision, and Bradford fans may not believe this, but I genuinely, at the time, loved the club, loved my football, loved everything. And I said, you know what? We're in a relegation battle here. I've been part of it for the first half of the season. I'm going to stay second half of the season and give it everything, and hopefully have a really good second half of the season, not just for the fans, but for myself. Win-win. And I made the decision to stay based on how much I loved the club, because I could have easily left. I had multiple options. And if I'm being honest, looking back, probably a regret, because that season there was a few other lads, Huddersfield youngsters, who ended up playing Premier League football, and it might not have happened to me, but there's a good chance it would have. So it is what it is. But yeah, second half of the season comes, and I remember it must have been about a week after I've decided to stay. I don't know who released it, but an article got released. I don't know if you've ever seen it, from someone in Bradford, basically saying that, like, I've decided to stay, but Bradford are now paying 12 grand a week of my wages. Yeah. Bearing in mind,
I don't think even when we were in the Premier League, we paid 12 grand a week to anyone.
bearing in mind, I was on nowhere near that. But even if I was, my wage never changes. When you're on loan, you get paid by your parent club, and then the club you're on loan to, they give the parent club, they reimburse them a percentage of the wage. It might be 50%, it might be 100%, whatever it was. But it come out saying that Bradford were paying me this, which was so far from the truth. But anyway, loads of Bradford fans picked up on it. I was getting loads of tweets saying, you're taking all the money out of the club, you're doing this, you're doing that, blah, blah, blah. And then it just felt like it went from the fans loving me as like the number one to like all of a sudden sort of hating me. But then so there was that, which obviously didn't feel nice for me because I'd sort of made the decision to stay with the thought of how much the fans loved me. Then all of a sudden they didn't. But then not just that, the second half of the season, I weren't good enough. My form wasn't good enough. I picked up quite a few niggles, but not an excuse. I was playing through quite a few injuries. But then I'm not sure, I can't remember what month David Hopkins left. It was either February or March. But then Gary Bowyer obviously come in for the last few months. But you bearing in mind, when he came in, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I'm going to be honest. At the time he come in, I was still top goal scorer, top assister. I think I was second in the league for chances created. I was still definitely warranted a place in the team, in my opinion. And then he come in and he just changed it and he just stopped playing me. So I think Bradford fans might forget, out of the last, I think, 15 games, I think I started one. So it will look like, and rightly so, my second half of the season was nowhere near as good as my first half. But yeah, like there was a lot of things that went against me, I felt, in the second half of the season. Definitely a big part of that's my responsibility, but there was a lot of other factors going on. And yeah,
How difficult does it make it going from being that fan favourite, everyone singing your song, you being the man, to then everyone turning on that release of that one article, probably getting abuse hurled at you from the stands, not getting that reception anymore? How does that impact you as a player on the pitch?
Yeah, it's difficult.
I think a lot of fans don't understand that.
Yeah, no, it's proper hard, and I'm never one to like type my own name in Twitter because I know that you're gonna see things you don't like. But when you're getting tagged in stuff, you're gonna see it, and obviously it's not nice. But at the same time, I've always seen it from a fan's point of view. At the end of the day, Bradford's a huge club that should never be in League Two. Like the season before I joined in League One, they either was in the playoffs or just outside the playoffs. They've been on loads of amazing cup runs. Like Bradford were a club that are used to having exciting times, and I was part of the team that got relegated. So, and at the time, second half, if we was at the top end of the league, it wouldn't have happened. So at the time, we're in the bottom 4, bottom 6, or whatever. They're gonna be angry, and they're gonna like if you're gonna accept the positive, like all the accolation, you've got to accept the criticism. I understand how it works, and I'd see it from their point of view. We're struggling at the bottom of the league. The player who they're relying on isn't performing. They're going to be angry at me. Like I fully accept that, but I do think the one perception you get about loan players, and it might be the case sometimes. When I was at Bradford, I was fully invested emotionally in trying to help the club stay up. And when they got relegated at the end of the season, genuinely, hand on heart, that was the toughest summer I had in terms of like that proper. I was devastated. Like, and obviously Bradford haven't recovered yet. I think they'll get promoted this year. I hope they do, but they're still in League Two a few years later, and I was part of the team that got them relegated, and that's something I regret and I live with. So I fully accept any negativity towards my time there. I hold responsibility for that. But I also, when I look back on my time at Bradford, there's that side, which is obviously the bad side, but I saw how good the club can be, how good the fans can be, and I had some amazing times there. So I do look back on the time, mix of views, but a lot of positive views as well.
Was there any part where you looked at the Huddersfield squad and went, that could have been me, week in, week out, I could have been playing in that team? Did that have an impact at all?
Do you know what? I think it changed so quickly. It went from me being like up here, and then all of a sudden within a month, I turned down going to clubs that went on to get promoted from League One. I turned down going back to Huddersfield where lads are playing in the Prem in the space of such a short space of time. So at the time, if you would have asked me, I'd have said no. But looking back subconsciously, I'm seeing X team winning every week and we're losing, and at a point I'm not even starting now, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like what have I done? Like I think, of course, yeah, that probably did affect me without realising at the time. And Football is literally a confidence game. It's the biggest drug in football. And when you're up here, like I was at the beginning of the season, no one can touch you. Like you go into games, you don't even have to think. And then vice versa, the other way, as the season goes on and you're getting close to the end of the season and you're still in the relegation battle and you're not performing and you're thinking this and that, then you're at the other end and everything you do seems, as opposed to coming off, it seems to be going against you. So it's just part and parcel, the highs and the lows, really.
So when you start getting the abuse, and we all see it, we see it at all clubs and players. Some of them take it, some of them fight back, some of them argue. When you've taken that abuse, and then you get the chance to score against that club, So we're jumping ahead a bit here. I'm going to come back. But I'm going to jump ahead, Grant, because I don't know if you know this. Last season we played Swindon at home, and Jack was on the bench, and it was Mark Hughes' second game at home. We went 1-0 up.
Oh, yes, it was a penalty game, wasn't it?
Right, okay. Don't get too excited. Why are you so happy about this?
Because it was funny. I enjoyed that game.
Right, so I saw you warming up, and my missus, it was her first season. She'd never done football, but she come into Bradford, and she was sat next to me, and I saw you warming up, and as soon as I saw you warming up, I just tapped her. I went, "You see that prick? He's coming off the bench, and he's going to turn this game around." And then you did. What's that like when you've taken that abuse? Because you obviously you got applause coming on the pitch, but some fans booed you. Which, if you go back to a club, it's always going to happen.
Yeah.
When you got that penalty, surely there was just no doubt in your mind you were taking that penalty 100%. And how did it feel? Pains me to talk about this. To be fair, like how did it feel to just be able to essentially get your own back in a way?
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to believe me or if any Bradford fans hear this. I don't know if they'll believe me. Hand on heart, genuinely hand on heart, there was not one part of me that was thinking about the Bradford fans that at that point or after. That game, so obviously at Swindon, we're fighting for the playoffs. I've been out injured for 12 weeks. My first injury, like bad injury in professional football, like which I proper struggled with. I was out for 12 weeks, like took it really hard. And that was my first game back. And I wasn't even fully fit. Like I shouldn't have really come back. I got rushed back. Like I rushed myself back, and I'd not even had any shots in training. So that penalty was the first shot I took since the return of my injury. So when I scored, 90% was just pure selfish relief and like I'm back fit, I'm back playing. The rest of it was all about getting the winner for Swindon. Not one part of me. I don't feel like I never want to get my own back on Bradford. Like I genuinely, I'm genuinely. When I look for the results, I want to see Bradford win. I would love to see Bradford get promoted this year, and I would love to see the club do well. And I'm not just saying that because it sounds nice, or maybe because I should say that. Like I genuinely, that club deserves. I'm like when you got a stadium, 15, 17,000, whatever it is, 15,000. That club should be in League One minimum. Like I want to see Bradford back to it. Yeah, there was not one part of me. And when I hear boos from away fans, like I don't mind it. Like fans, it's part of parcel. Like if I'm a fan when I'm older and I'm taking my kids to a game and the next player, you're gonna give them a boo. Like it's like I quite enjoy it if I'm being honest. Like when I'm warming up, like I get names all the time. Like I don't know, like shouldn't you be in school? Does your mum know you're out? Like because I'm little or whatever. I love all that stuff.
Can we just say about you being little, right? We didn't realise that you were that little until we were talking today, and we realised we don't think we've interviewed anyone over 5'6".
We've not. Everyone's been tiny, apart from David Artell. So we've had yourself, we've had Ben Whitfield, who is also tiny, and Dom Telford, who is a midget.
Yeah.
Here's one for you, right? So I'm going to put you on the spot here. You've just, like you said, you obviously want to see Bradford do well, and I appreciate that. Playoff final comes this season. It's Bradford versus Swindon. Where are you?
I'm Swindon.
Oh, I forgot. Get him off! To be fair, given how Bradford fans can be, I'm probably Swindon as well. No, yeah, don't blame you. We'll come on to Swindon because it's we've got lots of questions for Swindon, and a lot of them not even football related. And I'm sure you can guess who a lot of the questions are going to be about as well.
Yeah, I can bet.
Yeah. But before we do, you left Bradford. You went to Lincoln.
Yeah.
And the main sort of question that we had from Lincoln fans was regarding Michael Appleton.
Yeah.
And like, what were your thoughts on Michael Appleton at Lincoln? Really, that's what they really want to know.
Yeah, so obviously I joined Lincoln when the Cowleys were in charge, the Cowley brothers, and I signed for them. Similar story to Bradford. It's happened a few times in my career. I signed for the manager, and then within 10 games, he goes to Huddersfield, ironically, to the club I've just left. So obviously Michael Appleton comes in. And I remember the first game, I think it was against might have been against Portsmouth or whatever game it was. He'd made loads of changes, but he kept me in the team. And he said, because I played every game under the Cowleys, and he basically said, like I'm keeping you in the team because you're too good, not too sort of thing. And it was a massive relief because when there's a change in manager, you're a bit panicky, like, I might not be his cup of tea, whatever. But then he kept me in the team, so I was buzzing about it. And then a few games in, it just sort of changed. I remember my last ever start for Lincoln, I scored away to Wimbledon, I want to say. And then he dropped me for the next game, and I thought, that's a bit harsh. I've just scored, but not a big deal. I'll be back in soon. But then I just never came back in, to be honest. And I knocked on his door loads and said, like, why am I not playing? Like, my stats are good. Didn't really give me a proper answer. But then, I went from being on the bench to coming on for a bit, then not coming on at all. And then I remember he took me out of the squad completely a couple of times, which I've never had in my career, which was tough to take. But then not long after that was when COVID hit. So that season was cut short anyway. But it's a shame because Lincoln is actually a good club. It's got a lovely stadium. I like the area. But it just didn't work out, to be honest. I've got no grudges against Appleton or the club. The fans were good to me. Just didn't work out, to be honest, that move, if I'm being completely honest.
See, going back to the Cowley brothers, how is it when you're at a club where there is a two kind of way management? How different is that to being a single kind of manager, head coach?
Do you know what? At first, I thought they might not interrupt each other, but they might get in each other's way. But I'll be honest, they done it really well. They bounced off each other. Obviously, they're brothers, and they've done it for a long time. But it worked really well, to be fair. They both had similar ideas and they was on the same page. And I really enjoyed playing for them. I thought they were brilliant for me at the time. To be honest, it doesn't really feel that different to having one manager or two, because obviously you got assistant and coaches anyway. But no, I enjoyed the short time I had with them. I think if they stayed the whole season, I think it could have been a really good year for me. But it just is what it is.
Who's good cop? Who's bad cop?
They sort of took turns. That's what I liked about them. They genuinely did. Like one day, Nicky would be the angry one, and Danny would say nice or that sort of thing. And then they'd switch roles and they'd sort of calm each other down. They balanced each other out really well. I don't know if it's intentional when they plan it or it just happens naturally, which I do think is the case. It's quite natural. It does seem to really work with both of them, to be fair.
And when you've been dropped and you're being kept out of the team, do you obviously you have to look at who's keeping you out of the team? Yeah. Now, the guy that were keeping you out of the team at the time is Jake Hesketh, I think, is in it.
Yeah.
And this isn't being disrespectful to Jake Hesketh, but you look at where his career's gone compared to where your career's gone. At that time when you're being kept out, do you sit and do you look and just think, I could do so much better than this player is doing? Is that how does that work then in training? Like when you've got to train with this player that you know is taking your space, and you feel in your head, I should be making the starts.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the research there. By the way,
I got it sent to me by a guy who runs a Lincoln blog and Lincoln podcast.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I was gonna say, have you worked that one out? But no, I think naturally every single player is biased to themselves, and every player thinks I should be playing. So if I was playing, Jake would have thought that about me, and vice versa. I'm not gonna lie, I thought I should be playing, but that's the manager's decision. That's not his decision. I don't ever look at him and think how are you playing, sort of thing. That's the football's a game of opinions, and at the time, Appleton's opinion was he was benefiting the team more than I would be, and that's something I've lived with throughout my whole career. Where there's times where I've been playing, and the midfielder who's not playing might have been thinking they should be. That's just part and parcel. It is quite a weird concept, especially sometimes you get really good friends with the person you're directly competing with, and it's a bit like the week you're playing and they're not, and you can tell they're a bit more moody or whatever, and you're a bit you don't really know where to go with it. But no, in terms of that year, it is what it is. I thought I should have been playing, but like I said, it's just a game of opinions, and you just got to deal with that, really.
and you never really got a reason why either. I think
Nah.
that's probably the most frustrating part, isn't it? Like, not. I think if I was in your position, I could probably take being dropped if I was told why and there was a legitimate reason. But to just not be told, I think, to be honest, a bit of a shithouse move. But
yeah, I think that's fair to say. I'm a lot of players, if they're not playing, they'll just sort of get on with it. But I'll often just knock on the manager's door and just try and have it out and just say, like, tell me what I need to do. And if you tell me and I go and do it, then I'll play. And if I don't, then I hold my hands up. But then, I remember I knocked on his door a few times and I didn't really get a straight answer. And I remember I even went in once, might sound a bit cringy, but I went in with a piece of paper and I said, here's my stats compared to the lads who were playing, like how am I not playing sort of thing. And I remember he said to me, he was like, I'm buzzing off that. He was like, I like that you've done that. So I was thinking, oh, brilliant. And then I still never played. So these things happen, but it is what it is. Part and parcel of the game. It's just opinions, really.
Well, I mean, to be fair, when you look,
I was going to say, how far does it go before you go, do you know what? I'm not getting anywhere with this. I need to move on with my career.
Yeah, it's difficult. Obviously, at that time, it got took out of my hands because the COVID come around, the season finished short. So I didn't really have a decision to make in that department. But if I still had 4 or 5 months left of the season, it looks like I'm not going to play, then I think naturally you're going to want to, there's only so much where you're going to try and change the manager's mind. I think as footballers, we're quite stubborn and we believe, oh no, we're going to be the one to change his mind. But at a certain point, you've got to look and say, like, I've done what I can. It's not going to change. I need to go elsewhere. But yeah, it's just, you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. Obviously, there's more to it than that. You've got to find somebody who wants you, that's going to fit you. Then it's about area, finances. There's loads that go into it. So it's a big decision to make, really.
Well, you found someone that fit you straight after Lincoln, didn't you? And let's get onto it, because this is where it gets exciting. I think, really, we won't talk about Swindon's first season too much because for me, I don't really think Swindon's league position that season is anything to do with the players. There was just so much going on off the pitch, and it was a nightmare, really, wasn't it? And when you look at the squad that went into the second season you were at Swindon, so last season, you guys were under a transfer embargo. You had, I think it was £1,500 a week as a maximum they could offer for new players. So to try and bring in players is mad.
Yeah. It was 1,300 the embargo was, and I remember obviously the first season, like, correctly so, it's not worth going into because off the pitch it was just a nightmare. But obviously I was part of it, and I think that made it, like, when it comes to the summer, being part of it and then seeing the rebuild was quite special because I think it was around June, July pre-season. We come back and I think it was maybe 7 signed players we had. We was training. We had no manager, no like director, no coaches. The only coach we had was Steve Mildenhall, the goalie coach, and 5 players. And it was literally like, it was a bit of a circus. Like, I remember every day, I was checking on Twitter, like typing in Swindon, because I'm thinking at some point the club's going to go bust. Like, it seemed like it was heading that way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there was a takeover, and literally I'd say in the space of 2 weeks, like, got the gaffer in, Ben Garner, got his coaches in, and then just every day we were signing players. But we weren't just signing; we were signing some good players. I remember when I spoke to Johnny Williams before he signed, and he said he was thinking of coming, and I was like, oh my God, like, please come. And he ended up signing. Ben Gladwin signed. We had loads. Obviously, McKirdy come on loan, and he ended up having an amazing.
Who's that one? McKirdy? Oh, we've not heard of him.
Yeah, he came on loan, and then he ended up having the season of his life. But it just all seemed to fall into place. It was a miracle season, and honestly, the fact that we never got promoted will haunt me for the rest of my life because I felt like it was destined to happen.
It was. We were looking, and it was like sort of from probably October, November onwards, you guys were unstoppable. And it was horrible to be a fan of a team that was in the league coming up against you.
Yeah.
What was it?
Great. It was great to watch, though. You see,
when you weren't playing our teams, we'd watch yours.
From a point of us, we just really started this. And we done kind of weekly reviews on the game weeks, and Swindon were just an absolute joy to watch, report on. It was phenomenal to see.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable season. I think the first few months it was all about just bedding it in together, and it just sort of just seemed to click around the November point. And once we got going, like you said, we was unstoppable. It just every game we was playing some good football, like scoring goals. Everything just sort of we had an unbelievable group in terms of like. I think in my career, I can't think of many change rooms where I've been in where it was like a proper family. Like it's the old cliche, but like the boys loved each other. Like you come in every day, and most clubs you're at, like once you finish training, you get your lunch and you're off. Like lads were just sticking around to spend time with each other. The lads would come around mine, we'd see each other after football. It was just a proper, unbelievable group of lads. Really, it was real special.
Did you live with Harry McKirdy?
Never officially, no. So for the
Never
first time,
officially. Did he just not go home?
Did he just sleep on your sofa?
Pretty much, pretty much. He's that sort of guy. So he obviously come on loan, started getting friendly with him, got more and more friendly, and then it just sort of like messing me like on the way to your sort of thing. It just sort of just come round whenever. And I was living with my missus at the time. I remember the first time she met him, she weren't too keen. She was a bit like, he's a bit outrageous sort of thing. Because he can be.
That's an understatement, is it not?
Yeah, that's bold.
Yeah, no, it's an understatement. He can be quite outrageous. But yeah, then he just kept coming round. And to be fair, him and my missus, they get on so well now. She loves him. One thing I'd say about him is once he likes you and you're in his little small circle, he'd die for you. Like he's got a heart of gold. But yeah, I think we had a COVID outbreak in December, where about 15, 16 of the team got COVID, but me and him didn't have it. But we had to isolate for 10 days. And then he just came mine, and he was like, "Oh, I'm just going to stay here." And I said, "No, you're not. Like, you're not staying here for 10 days." And it was literally an ongoing joke where, like, as every day would go past, he'd be like, "Yes, I've made it to day 2 sort of thing." And I was like, "No, you need to get your stuff. You're leaving today." And I think he ended up making it to day 4 until I said, like, I said, "Seriously, you've got to go now." But like, nah, to be honest, as much as I joke, like, I do love having him about. And he ended up, I think the last couple of months, when things got really serious and we're in the playoff hunt, I sort of thought to myself, do you know what, maybe I'm better off having him around so I can keep an eye on him and keep him in good check and make sure he's doing the right things. And yeah, he ended up, to be honest, he ended up staying for the last couple of months. And when his rent finished in the summer, he ended up staying at mine during pre-season. And yeah, he spent a lot of time there, to be fair.
Right. So here's where the questions come in about Swindon.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, first thing that I got immediately was, please tell Jack to come back to Swindon. We need him here. So I'm just passing the message on. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just passing the message on.
Yeah.
Then I got asked, who got custody of the French Bulldog?
French Bulldog's mine. He's in the other room right now. He's always been mine. I don't know. I think just because McKirdy is so active with his Instagram, he's always posting stuff. I never post that. Probably looked like it was him, but the French Bulldog's always mine. It's never going anywhere else.
So he made out he had a dog basically on Instagram for clout.
Well, I think he just took I think he loved my dog and he took loads of pictures, and I assumed the fans just assumed it was his, but no, it's always mine. Yeah.
So was he living with you when he went to the Player of the Season awards?
Say that again. Sorry.
Was he living with you when he went to the Player of the Season awards?
What is that? The night where he wore the suit and that?
Yeah, with the bucket hat. Because I want to know who let him leave the house like that.
No, he was living with me, but he didn't leave the house like that. I'm pretty sure he went into London because it was in London, just wearing normal clothes, and he found an outfit on the day and just stuck with that. That's how I remember it. He didn't. All I know for a fact, I didn't see him leave the house like that.
So you're washing your hands of that responsibility.
Yeah, I've got no part to play. I've got no part to play in that.
Well, to be fair, that probably answers the next question, which was
what's his most annoying habit?
Well, no. Well, most annoying habit is one, but someone asked what's an unknown funny story between yourself and McKirdy. The fact that he left your house in one set of clothes, and then I'm guessing you saw the first time we did when the pictures came up online of him in a bucket hat and a white suit and sunglasses.
Yeah, like he'd sent me a picture just before what he was going to wear, and it was too late by that point. But yeah, I didn't see it. I definitely didn't see it in person before anyone else did.
Well, yeah, Grant, you can ask that question. The next one.
What was his most annoying habit?
I'd say he was messy. His room by the end of it. So we designated a room for him and all his stuff, and anything that I found, he'd just leave stuff on the floor and I'd just throw it in his room. But by the end of it, his room was an absolute like bomb site. And it just leaves stuff. He was messy. That's his worst habit. But he has good intentions, to be fair to him. But, you know, funny story about him. And I was debating whether to say it or not. But
no, say it. Don't worry.
So
I don't think he'd care.
Nah, yeah, that's the thing. He wouldn't care. He'd probably want me to tell you. So once I'd moved to Charlton, I still had a couple months left of my rent of my house in Swindon. And he was still at Swindon. And he had nowhere to live, sort of thing. So he just carried on staying at mine. So he was living there on his own for maybe 2 months when I weren't there. And then I'd come back just before moving out to get all my stuff and obviously hand over the keys. They was going to do a check to see if I got my deposit back. And I've come back to the house and I've seen on the wall about 3 or 4 dents in the wall about this size. And then I was like, what's that? I didn't straight away think, oh, it's probably him. I just thought, what is that? And then anyway, you know when you pack in your house and you buy loads of cardboard boxes, I've had them up against the wall and I've seen one of the cardboard boxes have also got the same holes in them. And I've seen on the cardboard box, he's drawn on them and he's drawn targets. And it says like in the middle, it's got bullseye 100, then 50, 25. In the corners was like 10. Long story short, he's in the lounge practicing his golf. He's basically used my drive as a golf range, and he's hitting the wooden cardboard box, but he's obviously sliced a few, and there's literal size of a golf ball dents in the wall, 3 or 4, which he's not told me about, and I'm supposed to be handing the keys over 2 days later to see if I get my deposit back. So that's just what it's like.
Deposit back.
Well, no, I had to get someone around to pay for it. It cost £300 to sort it all out, which I'm still waiting for. But he keeps saying to me, he's like, I'm not giving you the money. I want to take you out for food. He's like, I'm going to use it as ransom so I can see you again, because I've not seen him actually I've seen him a couple of weeks ago, but I've only seen him once since he left.
This is why he's fucked off to Scotland up here.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, he says to me, he's like, if I send you the money, I'm not going to see you. He's like, next time I'm in London, we'll go out for food and I'll pay for you. And then that's the way I'll do it. But yeah, he's just a carefree, no responsibility sort of guy. But yeah, you know what? I wish I had a bit of he's got like the maddest, the way his brain works is like nothing matters apart from right now. Like he's just fully in the present. Mm-hmm. So he could be having the worst thing going to happen to him tomorrow, but he doesn't care. He lives about right now. And I sort of think because of that, he just lives a happy life. And I don't mind it. I wish I had a bit more of that in me. Obviously there needs to be a balance, but yeah,
he just doesn't care, does he? And
no,
I think that's the best part.
Yeah.
As a fan of a club in this league that wasn't Swindon, I hated him, but at the same time appreciated him.
Yeah.
Like he was awful to come up again. I mean, it's like his Instagram. After that game, he went on Instagram and just put Bradford's a shithole, I want to go home. And it's like, you can't do that, but he didn't care. And he got in trouble for it, and he still didn't care. Yeah, you don't care. And you've got to remember, he's a massive Chelsea fan, and not just nothing to do with the fact that it's Chelsea, but he's a massive football fan. And when he plays the game, he's still a fan in his head. So like, he just loves the interaction with fans. Like fans booing him and that's his dream. So like, when he's playing against a club like Bradford, probably one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest, we're going to play against last season, and he's getting that sort of response. Like he loves that. Like he'll be at Chelsea games abusing the opposition fans, and he buzzes off that. So he'll want people to do that to him. Like that's just how his mind works. So yeah, like
it's one of these. I said about him coming up to Scotland this season. I said and I really want to see him push on up here, because I think he could be a right talent up in Scotland.
Yeah.
If he pushed on and had a season like he did last season at Hibs, he would end up at Rangers or Celtic.
Yeah,
and he would thrive off that atmosphere in there.
Yeah, he's got it in him. That was one of the reasons he went up there. I remember when he had the decision to make about going to Hibs. I think he watched it was a YouTube video. I don't know, they won a trophy however many years ago, and he watched the video after the game when all the fans are like singing, and he was like, "Yeah, that's a bit of me." Like he buzzes off that sort of thing, which a lot of players don't really take that into consideration. But it's not worked out so far for him. But if it clicks and he gets going, because he's a proper player. Like he could score at any level, like in the right team. So if it works for him, like you said, like he can proper push on. So I'm hoping I think they're playing Rangers now or tonight. I know they're away to Rangers. So yeah, if it happens for him, then it could be special.
I remember. So I'll tell you my funny story about Harry McKirdy.
Yeah.
So, and Grant knows this. Grant knew this before me because it was in my dreams. I genuinely we knew about McKirdy's transfer to Hibs. We knew about his transfer to Hibs. We'd known about it for a while, and like we weren't revealing it, but we were kind of like dropping hints.
Yeah.
So for like 3-4 days before he signed, my entire day was consumed by Harry McKirdy news. My inbox was what's happening with McKirdy? Where's he gone? I had Hibs fans, I had Swindon fans, I was talking about McKirdy until 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Then on the night he moved, I went to bed after the transfer window closed.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the night, I started sleep talking. And my missus is laid next to me, and I start shouting, telling him to get away. Get off, get gone, get away. She's like, who are you talking to? I'm like, Harry McKirdy, he won't get out of garden. She's like, what's he doing? I said, he's chasing fucking dog. And like in my head, I'm watching Harry McKirdy chase my dog around my garden.
Incredible.
I then fall back asleep and forget. And the next day, Grant texts me going, did you catch him in the end? And I'm going, what's he talking about? And then my missus comes in and goes, did you catch him? And I went,
what have I done?
Harry McKirdy in my garden. Like,
no way.
Genuinely, we've spoken to his agent not like quite recently, and we're hoping to get him on here.
Yeah,
because I want to tell him that story because I think he'll love that story.
Yeah.
It's right up his street.
Yeah, I'll have a word with him. I'll nudge him to come on. But
yes.
You know what? The worst thing is, like, if that was a real story and he was in your garden chasing your dog, like, I wouldn't put it past him. Like,
well, I think this was the thing. Like, I don't think anyone would ever. If it was any other player, they'd go, "That's a bit mad," but because he's Harry McKirdy, they go, "Yeah."
It was just wanting a new dog for his Instagram. That's all it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
He'd gone to Hibs and he didn't have yours anymore, so he came after mine.
Yeah,
fucking stay away from my dog.
I'll introduce him when he comes on. So look, the summer comes. This summer just gone. There was so much talk about what was happening, when you were going to move, if you were going to move. And it was quite a late move that you had. Like, question I've had is, what was the actual story of this summer? Because you've never had that chance to give your version of events, and like, what happened that made you move to Charlton in the end? Because as far as I can tell, you tried to stay at Swindon quite far into the pre-season, didn't you?
Yeah. So obviously, season finishes. If we got promoted, I'd have been at Swindon, like, without a doubt. Like, yeah. I genuinely love Swindon. Like, I love it. Last season was the most I've ever been emotionally. Like, I was so invested in the club. Like, I was so desperate for us to get promoted. It didn't happen. But then I still thought, I love it here. I'm loved here. I'm playing good football. Like, I was not going to leave for no easy reason. Obviously, early on into the off-season, the manager leaves. Ben Garner goes to Charlton. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, that's a bit of a strange one. But at that time, I had no contact with...
Oh.
We back?
We're back.
Yeah, so I hadn't spoke to him or anything. It weren't about going to Charlton at that time. I was still only in contact with Swindon, trying to sort out a deal, trying to sort something out. But at the time, they didn't have a manager. So I was saying, well, like, what's going on with that situation? That took quite a while. That took a few weeks. And then there was a few different names being thrown around. Then eventually Scott Lindsay becomes the gaffer, someone who I got on really well with from last year, who I knew well. So that was a massive positive. So that made it a lot more likely for me to sign to Swindon. I met up with Lindsay a couple of times, had a really good couple conversations. And in my head, it looked like that was gonna happen. I then got a couple offers from a couple League One clubs, which were quite good, but didn't really make sense. And I was weighing up the pros and cons basically. And then it sort of got to the point where I was pretty confident about staying at Swindon. And then that's when Charlton got involved. And the difference between Charlton and the other League One clubs was, the main difference was the location. I'd moved out when I was 21, 7 years ago. And I've always been 2, 3, 4 hours away from home. And it was the one thing that I'd missed the most, was living at home, like being near my friends and family. And the other thing that people probably don't take into consideration, I live with my girlfriend, who also lived with me in Swindon. who had no friends, no family around her. She was not miserable, but she was desperate to move back home, back to Essex. And yeah, obviously Charlton come about, back in League One where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in League Two. I wanted to be back in League One. Massive club like Charlton, under the manager that I'd had my best season with the season before. It ticked all the boxes. It was never about the money. I think I've come out and said it a couple of times. If I stayed at Swindon, I'd have been on more than what I am now at Charlton. I would never make that up. It was never a financial decision. It was the main decisions was the ambition of being back in League One and being back home, and that's what it come down to. It was nothing to do with Swindon. They've done everything they can, and I loved the club. If I was still at Swindon, I'd have been very happy. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'd always wanted to buy my own house in Essex, which I've now done, which I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And football's a short career. If I didn't do it now, I'd struggle to do it in the future. I'd struggle to get a mortgage after I turn 30. So yeah, it was a life decision more than anything. And as I'm sure many Swindon fans might have seen, that my start to Charlton's not been the amazing start I would have liked. I don't start every game in the league. I've only started a few. And yeah, obviously that's been tough to take, especially when most of them games was under Bengano, obviously has left now. But yeah, it's not been the best start I would have wanted. But even so, in terms of my life off the pitch, being able to get my own house, like being near my mum, dad, sister, who have proper missed me. Like I think when I first moved here, my mum come round and she literally said to me, like, I can't believe I've drove 20 minutes to see you. Like, this is so nice to me. I've not been able to do this for like nearly 10 years. And I think that moment alone like made it worth it, really. It just had to be done.
No, fair play. We don't think of those reasons. I think when we're looking at these things, I think we all do think that it comes down to one thing in football, and it doesn't always. Between Swindon and Charlton, I have a question, and it's directly from a Crawley fan.
Okay.
And it's wrote, I told you, I said I'll ask it.
We said we'd ask this one.
How relieved are you didn't sign for Crawley Town?
I'll be honest, I wouldn't say I'm relieved I didn't sign, because if I'm being honest, I never was going to sign there. I spoke to the manager because Kevin Betsy at the time, he wanted to speak to me, and I would never turn down the chance to speak to a manager, because I think that would be stupid. Like, you never know where a relationship could go and what you can learn from a manager. They offered me a much better deal than what Swindon did and what Charlton did. But like I said, this move was never about the money. If I was going to stay in League Two, it would have been at Swindon. And that's, I'm not just saying that now that I've gone, that was a fact. And yeah, the only reason I was ever leaving Swindon was to go back to League One and for location reasons. So yeah, the Crawley move would have never happened. But yeah, I did speak to the club, and they've not done too well this season, but I think they've started picking up a bit lately from what I've seen. So yeah, hopefully they can.
They picked up a bit, and then they sacked the interim manager, and then they got spanked by Hartlepool on Friday night. So it didn't go great. But no, it's been a mixed match season, I think, for them. And we heard about you. Well, we didn't know you'd spoken to them, but we heard that there was a potential that you were going to go to Crawley, and it was like, they were throwing money about this summer.
Yeah,
we know they were with the players that they brought in, and fair play for you for not taking that, because for a lot of players they would have just taken that. And I mean, Crawley to Essex is, I'm guessing, closer than Swindon to Essex. It wouldn't have been as far. You'd have been just a little bit further out. Obviously, over London, it's not too hard to travel, is it? So
the other thing was that I'm 28 now.
Yeah,
my next contract was going to be a 2-year deal. Like, that takes me to 30. If I didn't sign for a League One club now, hopefully, if I stayed at Swindon, we would have got promoted. But if we didn't, then it would every year that goes on, it becomes a lot harder to climb up the ladder, which was another thing that come into it, which was another reason I weren't going to go Crawley. It was about climbing the ladder, really. But yeah, no, it's a difficult one. But I don't know. It's hard. I honestly, like, when it comes to leaving Swindon, the amount of things I was getting tagged in Twitter, like sending like emotional videos and that, like, fans probably don't think the players see it, but it got to me, and I was a bit like, oh my god, like, how can I leave this sort of thing? But it made sense for me and my family. But yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't understand how people find out about the Crawley talks and that. I must have had like 2 words with a manager on text, and then I was arranged a Zoom call. Then all of a sudden, everyone knows that there's rumours that I'm going there. I don't know how it works. It's incredible how quick word spreads.
Yeah,
It
some
is
of the things that we
amazing.
hear about, and we're like, what? And then a couple of days later, it'll become news. And we're like, how did we get that?
Yeah.
So like some of the things that come about. I mean, McKirdy going to Hibs, the
Yeah.
amount of abuse we got from people when we kind of let on that we knew early on that McKirdy was going to leave. The amount of abuse that we got.
Really, yeah.
There's no way he's leaving. He's not going. He's staying with us. And then
the amount of abuse the SPFL got as well. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
And then when we said it was going to be Hibs, it was he's not going to Hibs. Why would then Hibs fans started coming in and they're going, what have you heard? And we're like, just wait.
Yeah.
And then obviously he goes, and then all those people that give you abuse go really quiet, and you never hear from them again.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Well, look, before we're going to move on to Charlton now. Before we do, I'm going to ask you, because obviously Swindon, for me, sounds like that's your club now. Like you've got that emotional tie to Swindon. Do you think you'll go back to Swindon before the end of your career?
Ooh.
I have no idea. I'd never say no. Like I like I said, I genuinely love the club. Like the fans were amazing to me. The players were amazing, and yeah, I don't know. They've got that one song that they sing that gets me every time. The Take My Hand, Take My Whole Life too. Like that song gets me. I look back at the Swindon with nothing but love, and if I am ever back there, then I'll be very happy. But yeah, I have no idea what the future holds for me.
Fair play. So Charlton, obviously you mentioned it's not gone great for yourselves. It's not gone how you'd have expected it to, or how you'd have wanted it to. The question that I kind of got from about Charlton was, are you still enjoying Charlton with Ben Garner gone? So obviously you worked under Ben at Swindon, he brought you into Charlton, it didn't work out, he's gone. Are you still happy there? Not you're still happy there, because I think you've not been there long enough to really be unhappy. It'd have to be a really drastic situation to be unhappy. But is it still the same for you? Like, how does it, when you lose a manager who you've followed from another club, how do you deal with that, and how do you adapt, especially when you've maybe not been in the squad as much, and you're trying to break in, and then the manager changes? Is it like a fresh slate for you? Is that what the manager says when he comes in, the new one?
Well, yeah, it's a difficult one. Obviously, like I said before, I've signed for a lot of clubs and the manager's left, but it's slightly different because I've had a full season with him last season, then I followed him to a new club, and then he's left 5 months into his tenure. But yeah, it's just part and part of football. A new manager's going to come in, and I've got to try and impress him and show what I can do. But I think it might have been worse if, say, this season I played every game under Ben Garner, then he left, and the new manager come in, I didn't play, then I'd be in a bit of a sticky situation. But I've not played every game under Ben Garner, so a new manager comes in and he might play me every game. Like, you never know what's going to happen. But yeah, I'd imagine when the new gaffer does come in, he will probably look at some of the previous games, but hopefully, all in all, it'll be a bit of a fresh start, and hopefully I can prove what I can do. Obviously, I'm only 6 months into my contract. I've got 2 years here, so I've got a lot of time to prove to the Charlton fans what I can do and what I can bring to the table. I've shown glimpses. I've still got quite a few goals and assists this season, even though I've not played loads. So, yeah, there's still. I think when we were speaking about the Southend year where I had my best year, I think up until November I'd scored like 1 goal, and then second half of the season I was on fire, and then everyone remembers that as my best season ever. But opposite to the Bradford year, but I think everyone always remembers the second half of the season. So who's to say that hopefully I can't smash it second half of the season, and then all of a sudden Charlton fans are saying what a great first season it's had. Whereas do you know what I mean? The football's a short-term game, so I'm nowhere near writing this season off. I've still got a lot of hopes for this season, and yeah, new gaffer comes in, and hopefully things will change around.
I think every fan in the leagues knows what Jack Payne is all about as well.
Yeah,
nightmare. That's horrible to play against.
Yeah,
great to have in your team.
Yeah, it's mad, but like I've been in the professional game 10 years now, which is mental. Like, I've played over 350 games, like most of them across League One, League Two. Like, obviously, I had a season in the Champ, so yeah, I know I played against pretty much every team. So I love playing, and yeah, I'm just hoping I've got another 10 years in me, hopefully, because yeah, you can't beat it really.
Yeah. Well, you've got Bristol Rovers this weekend.
Yeah.
That's a big game, is that? It's a really big game. Bristol Rovers obviously came up last season. They had a phenomenal second half. When we talk about second halves of the season,
Exactly. Yeah.
they are the
Unreal.
second half of the season team, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think we checked, they were 18th in the league on the 1st of January last year.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I remember, I think it was around Christmas time, I think there might have been about 21st, and Joey Barnes come out and said they'll still get promoted. And everyone was thinking, I'm not sure about that one, but fair play, stuck to his word. And
it was coming to the last game of the season, so we recorded a podcast, and I said on the podcast, I was like, all Bristol Rovers need to do is beat Scunthorpe 7-0 to go up. And I think they're going to do it. That game is going to finish 7-0. And then everyone was like, nah, it's never going to happen. I went, watch it. This is going to happen. And it just happened. And my phone was like, what the fuck have you just done?
Yeah, please tell me you put a bet on it.
No, I didn't.
He didn't. No, he
Stupidly.
Yeah, I
can you imagine the odds?
I remember we had to beat Walsall to get in the playoffs, and we come off the pitch, we just beat them 3-0. And I remember one of the lads telling me Bristol had gone up automatically because they'd won 7-0, and I couldn't get my head around it. Like,
it was crazy.
Yeah.
Because you had that spell. It was when Harry McKirdy got injured, when everything just it was like a 6 or 7 game downward spiral for a bit. Yeah. When you were clear in the playoffs, you dropped down, but then you just climbed back in.
Yeah.
And you had that momentum going through, and I was like, you're going to do it, and then
I was convinced we was going to win the playoffs. I think we had 8 games to go, and I think we won 7 out of the 8. And when it comes to the last 4, we had to win every one to have a chance, and then we won all 4. So I remember at that point it was already like sort of at knockout football. Like we'd already been used to having to win each game, and then we win the first leg of the playoffs, and we go into the second. I still to this day that night haunts me. But yeah.
So obviously that night, the Port Vale game, the penalties.
Yeah.
A lot of fans weren't happy with McKirdy when he missed his penalty and he turned and laughed. But is that just his way, you think, of dealing with a really awkward situation? Because he's had a phenomenal season and that's how it's ended. Do you think that's just his way of dealing with that sort of situation? Yeah,
I'd say, when I said before, like, I've never cared so much about getting a team promoted, he was well on board. Like, he was emotionally, he's the most emotional person I've ever come across. And he was committed. He come back with the 4 games to go and said, I'm 100% we're going to win all these 4. And I think he scored in every game. And I'll tell you something about him that night, the playoff semis, when he missed the penalty. Obviously, he done that reaction, whatever. And this is, I promise you, he come back to mine that night, stayed at my house. Me and him, we didn't sleep. We sat up in my lounge all night till it got light outside with a glass of wine and a hand on heart. And he won't mind me saying this. He cried his eyes out for about 7 hours straight, just cried his eyes out. The next day we woke up, went into London. I was driving. My mum called me and she was like, "Oh, like, how you feeling?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, but like, I'm all right." She was like, "Oh, how's Harry?" And he sat next to me, and that's all she said is, "How's Harry?" And he just started crying again. Like, he was an emotional wreck. Like, there's not one Swindon fan that would have gone through or like cried as much as he cried. Like, I can't tell you how much that night affects him. Every time I speak to him, not every time, but we speak about it all the time. Like, even Harry Kane missed the penalty the other night. Straight away, like, his first thought is about like because he's a big England fan as well, so am I. And we're watching that and he's like, "I can't believe it's missed." And he was like, "I literally done the same thing." Like, and it just brings it back to him. But yeah, that reaction with the smile, that's just, people react different ways to all, because he's never been in a situation like that again. And I said to him, I missed a big penalty when I was younger at Sheffield Wednesday in the playoff semi-finals, and so I said, since then my whole mindset towards penalties has been so different, and my record's been so much better since. But he'll learn from that. But yeah, that destroyed him for a while.
That's mad, because I don't think we don't appreciate that knock-on effect. I think as fans, I like that would have never entered my head as being his reaction. We watched the game back a few times, and we're just sitting there and we're just thinking, how have we not won this? And I promise you, must have been sat there until about 7, 8 in the morning. It's light outside. We're still downstairs in the lounge, just going through it in our heads, like, how is this happening? And
I remember like I'd be sat there on my phone and I wouldn't forget he was there, but I wouldn't even be thinking. I'd go up to go to the toilet, I walk past him and he's just sat there, just literal tears streaming down his face. Like he was an emotional wreck.
I feel really bad now.
No, honestly,
see, just a side. How depressing is it? See, after a match, see where you get beat, where the gaffer pulls you in and sits down and goes, "Right, we're watching this game back."
Yeah,
how depressing is that for when the gaffer's just pulling the game apart? You're just going, "Oh shit, here we go."
Yeah, it's soul destroying. But yeah, back onto the point about how it affects us after, because I think some perception is that like after a game, whether you win or lose, like the lads go out on a night out or they go for food or they forget about it. But majority of players, like if I lose the game, it affects my weekend. Like, or I've always said like if I play really well and score, or if I play really bad, I'm having a sleepless night. The only time I sleep all right is if it's just a bit of an average game, like a draw or whatever. But apart from that, like my missus would be the first. Like I'm a different person for the rest of the Saturday and the Sunday, whether we've won or lost. Like the players, they do care, and I know it's the same with fans. I've talked to loads of supporters who say the same. Like their week depends on how well the team's doing, and it's mad how much the game affects us. But in terms of putting the game on, like when you come in on the Monday and you can just see the game pause at the beginning, and all the chairs are out there, and you're watching the game back, and then you're just thinking about. You're watching the build up and you're like, oh, I'm about to get the ball and lose it here, and you know it's coming, and you just want the ground, to swallow you up.
You
want the ground to swallow you up, and you can feel your eyes on the back of your head, and you're like, oh
no. Well, look, if he watches this, because he might do, but Harry, we'd love to have you on, and we'd love to hear your side where you say you didn't cry, you were stone faced, and Jack cried all night.
Yeah,
and he came and lived with you for 3 months, and how he stole your dog. That's what we think is going to happen here.
Yeah, that's the real story.
Shall we do some League One teammates?
Yeah. So that's the end of the conversation. But we're gonna make it a bit fun now, a bit of a fun end for you. All right. Let's see how brave you are.
Yep.
In terms of answering these questions, because we've had some belting answers. Okay. So the standard's high.
Yep.
Right, so here is Jack on his Charlton teammates. So first up, who's got the worst taste in music?
I'll say Sam Lavelle. Only because he's the current DJ and I was the DJ, and it's sort of every time I was DJ, he'd hammer my music, and then he took over. And yeah, do you know what? He ain't the worst, but he's the one that comes to mind because he was a bit of a hater when it comes to my music. So
what's the difference in the musics?
I went for more upbeat house, sort of like get the lads going. He's more of like a Drake, softer sort of music, and then gets it going towards the end. But I like to just get it going the whole time.
Fair. Who's the worst dressed at the club?
George Dobson.
Harry McKirdy last season, wasn't it?
Yeah, it would have been. But yeah, George Dobson this season, he doesn't really put stuff together. Like he'll wear, like even on a match day when everyone's supposed to wear the same, he somehow just doesn't make it look good. Like his socks are at different lengths and his laces are a different colour to his trainers. It's just a bit of a mess, really.
Who's got the worst trim?
Charlie Kirk. Without a doubt, and he's non-stop playing with his hair as well, like the hairspray before the game. He must do this about 100 times a minute, but yeah, his trim's miles off it.
Who picks up the most stupid fines?
Corey Blackett-Taylor at the moment. I don't know what he's getting fined for, but every week, Ryan Innes does our fines, and he puts in the chat, and every week Corey's just got fined. He's always the one who's not paid from last week, and it was always the one that's got the most new fines. But yeah, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what they're for. It's just probably little sloppy things, but he's just seemed to mount up.
Does he argue them?
No, he's the most laid back person in the world. He would never argue the fines. I think he's that laid back. He just forgets to pay. Yeah.
Who's always the first one out in the bleep test or the slowest in the team?
Oh, that's difficult. We've not had any running tests since I've been here. Honestly, I wouldn't even be able to give a name for that. I'd assume it would be the Goldies because they're usually... But I think the Goldies here are quite fit. Do you know what? I'm struggling for a name there. because we've got quite a fit group and we've not done any testing, so I couldn't even give you anything.
Finally, you might know what's coming. Answer this one anyway, and which you desire. Who's the longest in the shower?
Do you know what? I knew that was going to come, and
Just bear in mind, Dom Telford didn't even bat an eyelid. Not only did he answer, he went into detail.
Did he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Usually in every team, there's just one that straight comes out, and I can't think who that is in our team. Do you know what? I'm gonna say. I've got a few names. I've got a few like images in my head that I'm trying to think. Who's the longest? I'm trying to go around the changeman, picture everyone at their places. Do you know who I'm gonna say? Both goalies spend a lot of time in the shower, Jojo and Craig. But I'm gonna have to give it to Jojo. He spends a bit longer in the shower, and that's all I can give you. There
we have it.
Fair play. I like it. I like how you've said spends a long time in the shower, and Dom Telford went, no, he's massive.
Don't mind it. I don't mind it.
But then we were like, oh, fair play. And he went, because. And then he just went into detail. And we were like, oh, do we need to edit this? How do we do it? And we'd done that. It went out. We didn't get any. No bad feedback. I mean, who would? Can you imagine that player sat there at home listening to it, just going?
No, I bet he was buzzing. I bet he recorded it and sent it to everybody.
Dom's been looking. Well, look, we've reached the end. Honestly, this has been classless, and I think we didn't expect you to go into the detail. I think that you did, and a lot of players can be quite reserved. So honestly, thank you very much for that. And I do think that you've given fans of these clubs some answers that you haven't had. Like we say, you don't get the chance to say goodbye, especially like loan clubs and things. You don't get that chance. So honestly, this has been great. So thank you very much. Really enjoyed it. Good luck for the rest of the season. Good luck this Saturday. We've got a Bristol Rovers fan in our WhatsApp group, so please smash them.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try. But I've enjoyed coming on. You've asked me questions that I've not been asked before, and I've not actually since I've left Bradford and left any clubs. I've never actually got to say the reason. So it's quite nice for me to actually be able to express myself. So yeah, thanks.
That's why we do it.
Thanks for having us on,
Grant. Walk us out.
Do you know what? I think you've done a really good job for most of it. So all I'm going to say is everyone give us a follow on all our socials, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, share it out, smash the like button, rate us 5 out of 5 on Spotify, Apple Music, give it a share as well. Jack, Liam said it. Absolute pleasure having you on, mate. Good luck for the rest of the season and hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Grant. And
everyone,
pleasure.
We've been the Lower League.